We suggest you line up some tools to do the job. We have a 3/4 inch wrench, 9/16 wrench, 9/16 wrench, 3/8 wrench, a spark plug wrench, a screwdriver to stick through the spark plug wrench to turn it, and a can of WD-40, and a carpenter's square or appropriate straight edge. To begin the installation, we suggest to remove the spark plug wire, insert the wrench, use an appropriate bar to turn the spark plug, and loosen it up, and remove the spark plug. This will make it easier to turn the engine over to put the belt on, plus it's a good safety feature. After you pull out the wrench, the spark plug will be in. Set that aside till we're finished with the installation of the belt. To begin the installation, let's take the 3/4 inch wrench and remove the 2 nuts that hold the belt cover on.
Yes.
Pull the belt cover off and set it aside. You ready? Next, we'll break the nut loose on the elevation screw and screw it up out of the way. And using a 3/8 wrench on the square, we'll lower the elevation screw to facilitate dropping the engine down to replace the belt. Screw it all the way down inside the nut, and you should have sufficient clearance to work. Next, let's loosen the 2 front screws that hold the motor plate. We just loosen them up slightly, one on this side, one on this side. When you loosen these, the motor plate will drop slightly. Next, using 2 wrenches, we'll loosen the rear bolts on the motor plate. There's one on each side. Next, we'll loosen the 4 bolts that hold the motor in position on the motor plate. This will facilitate easy removal and replacement of the belt. You'll find 2 bolts in the back. Loosen them up sufficiently so that the motor can be slid back. We're going to also loosen the front bolts, again sufficiently so there's plenty of play. Now with the bolts loose, we can push the motor back to give us more play on the belt. You don't have to film this, we're just going to move. Yeah. Next, we're going to either do one of 2 things. We can roll the motor over and grab the belt and slide the belt over 1 groove at a time until we are completely off the pulleys, or because it's a used belt and we're really not that concerned about problems with the belt, we could actually just take a knife if we like and cut the belt right off. Grab the new belt, slide it onto at least 1 groove on the lower pulley, and then begin to turn the engine over slightly with the belt rolled on 1 groove at a time. We can force the belt in by hand, put it on the 2nd groove on this one, force the belt in a little bit, roll it onto another groove on the lower pulley, and again, holding it over, we can roll it all the way over into the lower pulley. Now, we can grab it and force it into the upper pulley until it fits in all the grooves. Before tensioning the belt, we should grab the carpenter's square or an appropriate straight edge and lay it flat against the bottom pulley and swing it into the upper pulley. The pulleys should be in line vertically. If not, loosen the upper pulley or the lower pulley and move them in or out slightly to attain alignment. This will increase your belt life. Next, we grab the engine, roll it around some, and pull it forward until we attain the original position, approximately. And then using the 9/16 wrench, we're going to tighten the motor back in place on all 4 bolts and tighten them securely so the motor does not move after we do the initial belt tightening. The next portion of the operation is again using the 3/8 wrench. Put it on the square on the bolt and begin to rotate it to increase the belt tension. Every time you do it a little bit, again, go back to the belt and make sure that you're applying some tension to it. Because it's a 4-groove belt, it doesn't have to be exceptionally tight to drive the drum. I would suggest with your finger you can probably push it 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch in like this. Okay. Next we'll tighten the one front bolt to hold the motor plate in position. And now if you'll notice, if you look at a line across this way compared to a line across this way, normally when you tension the belt with this screw, it will cause the motor plate to tip slightly. What we want to do now is get a piece of wood or a broom handle and stick it inside the front handle and wedge it down. And you'll notice if I do this, I can pull this side of the motor plate down and you'll see an approximate same space on both sides. Now we'll tighten the second front bolt while holding some down pressure to level the plate. After the second front bolt is tight, you can remove the wood and set it aside. And we're going to get a second 9/16 wrench, and again we're going to tighten the back bolts. Either side first, it doesn't matter. Tighten the second one. After this bolt is tight, we should walk around to the front and tighten up the jam nut on the elevation screw. Bring it back down against the bit long nut, and using the 9/16 wrench, just snug it up so it can't vibrate loose. We're going to secure the cover, put it back on the machine, tapping it on with your hand, enough to put your washers on, 2 lock washers, and the acorn nuts that hold it in position. Using the 3/4 inch wrench, we'll tighten up the nuts to stop the cover from vibrating or falling off. Part of the operation is going to be reinstalling the spark plug. Using the spark plug tool or a deep socket, we're going to screw the plug back in. And using an appropriate bar or a ratchet or whatever you use to replace the plug, we'll snug it up slightly, remove the wrench, reinstall the spark plug wire, and the unit's ready to run.